Welcome to Still Moment Studio. My name's Paula. Today I'm pausing for just a minute as I sketch in my new painting to talk a little bit about ratios and proportions and how you enlarge a reference photo onto your painting. So as you can see right here, this is a little boy, and I'm trying to enlarge it onto an 11 by 17 piece of paper. So the first thing I did, because his head is so close to the center line vertically, I went ahead and roughly found the center line visually, and I sketched that lightly on there. The next thing I did was I roughed in a head. How I'm going to gauge the entire size of the body is based on his head size. So the first thing I need to figure out is where I want the head, how I want that positioned, visually as an artist because that's going to affect my entire painting. I do want from the head all the way down to his feet because what he's doing in the water down here is just a part of his playfulness in this picture. So I definitely want all the way from the head down to the feet. So you rough in a circle up here. It does not have to be perfect. You're just going to do a sketchy kind of circle. And then you're going to take your fingers and you lock them into place as much as you're able to. Stiffen your fingers. And you're going to count out how many heads on your paper here based on how many heads tall the child is on your reference photo. So as you can see right here, he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about a half, 5.5 heads high. So then if my head were quite large, I would know right away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm off the paper. And you know right away you need to shrink that head a bit. You just keep doing that until you have the right size. So that is the very first thing that you do for a picture like this. If your head is off, if it's overly enlarged, the rest of your picture is going to be off and you won't know that until later. The second thing you're going to do is then start to mark the head heights. So I marked a line here, 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 and on down past where you can see in the camera view currently. So I marked 5.5 head heights. If you're having trouble kind of stiffening your fingers and being fairly accurate, you can also use a piece of paper, as you can see right here. This one right here is for the little boy. So you just hold it at the top of his head, you mark where his chin is. The nice thing about using paper is I can fold it in half, and then I have a half a height, a half a head height. And if I fold that in half again, I then have a quarter head height. So then I have several other measurements that I can make in terms of how wide are his shoulders from his back to the shoulder over on the other side. How wide are his hips in comparison to his head? And I have a second piece of paper. This would be the head height over on my painting, what will be my future painting, marked where the chin is. Again, I can do the half a head height and then fold again and get the quarter head height. So that's another thing that you can do. You can also take your pencil and just mark with your finger the head height and then count it out using that. Once you get that down, you have your head height, you have it portioned out on your paper where how this is going to fit into the paper itself. Don't start to draw until you have that figured out because that is the key thing that you will need. The next thing that you will do is you'll start to use your pencil to gauge the different relationships in the picture itself. So what you would do as an artist, if you're live out in nature in a room and you're trying to get a scene onto your paper, you'll hold your pencil at arm's length and you will angle, right, your pencil to try to gauge what is the line that I'm seeing in the top of a ceiling or a path or a book on a table, right? You start to kind of guess angles using your pencil. You do the same thing over here on a reference photo. So as you can see, his back has an angle right there. And if I can kind of hold that pretty steady and just bring it across, right? And I have to do that a couple of times because I might move. Originally, I had this more angled than it was, as you can see. I didn't realize right away that his upper body is very straight compared to the angle of his back. There are other reference lines that you can look at. You can look at the front of his shirt, how it passes by his cheek, the line through his neck right there. It passes right by his eye. How his eye right there passes by his mouth, down through the mouth right there. The back of his head and how that lines up with the back of his shoulder. You have the top of the arm and where that passes through the back of the shirt. And that's a nice one because that was one of the head heights. One head height, second head height is here, and how that includes a little bit of that fold right there. And that lets me know I should be on track in terms of all these folds and what's going on in the back if I start that fold right about in there. The third head height was this portion right here. And originally, as I was getting this kind of focused down into from a sketch phase to really finalizing some of these lines, I had originally had the shirt quite a bit longer than this. And so I was able to more accurately represent that as I start to bring in all the cross-referencing that comes into play. So there are very faint lines, if you can see that with the camera and all the lights. There's a faint line here, how the head lines up with the shoulders, how the neck lines up into the face and the eye. There's a line here of how the face, if I were to bring that full face line down, how it compares to where the shirt should be at that point. There's a neat line in his leg down below there. It'll pass right by his hand, and that gives me a nice little reference so that I can gauge if I've accurately represented the arm and how long it is. It should end about where that line coming up from the knee. So that's a nice one. The knees in comparison to each other, you have over here in the brick, you have a line that really doesn't engage with the boy itself. So I could play with this one a little bit and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't affect the boy's proportions at all. So that's how I freehand sketch, and it goes from a sketch into a finalized drawing as I cross-reference, and I will even create cross-references with the eyes, the nose. I'll divide up the face like you typically would, eyes, nose, mouth. His face is a little bit upturned, so I'll give it a bit of a curve. And I'll have all these very fine sketches on top of this that will just help me to reference how things line up with each other, and that helps me to create pretty accurate proportions as I go along. So I just wanted to pause in my drawing for a moment. I had a question in one of my other videos about how, if this was a sketch or what was I using, and so it is a sketching method where I cross-reference in order to get fairly high accuracy. So hopefully you've enjoyed some little tips in how I do this. This is only one method that you could use. So whatever works for you. So thanks for watching. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this drawing so that I can get it to the painting stage. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.